Vampires. They are monsters of terror, possessing powers of transformation and regeneration. Yet, they have fatal weaknesses, such as sunlight and holy water. One such creature, a young man with glowing red eyes, confronts a hooded figure. He demands to know who his adversary is and why they carry holy water before stating his own identity. In a starkly different reality, a young office worker named Sodto sits cross-legged in his small apartment, sighing with exhaustion. He stares down at a health report, its results clearly indicating a problem that has caused him to be flagged. He collapses backward onto his bed, overwhelmed. The stress from his job, his low salary, and concerns about his future are a heavy burden. Now, even his one simple pleasure, being able to eat what he wants, is threatened. As he lies there in despair, a strange, disembodied voice echoes through his mind, announcing that it has found one who seeks power. He faintly questions the origin of the peculiar voice. Suddenly, he awakens with a jolt, finding himself not in his apartment, but sitting on the cold stone floor of a cave. He is dressed in unfamiliar, aristocratic attire. Utterly bewildered, he wonders where he is, even questioning if this could be his company, as the voice urges him to awaken. He whips his head around in a panic, shouting for the speaker to reveal themselves. The voice calmly replies, introducing itself as Shzard, the one who granted his wish. It delivers a shocking revelation. His body has been possessed, and he has been turned into a vampire. Shzard warns that there is no time and that he must quickly grow accustomed to his new form. Before he can react, an unseen force launches him out of the cave entrance at blinding speed. He screams in terror as he hurtles through the air, the bright light overwhelming him as he sees the ground rushing up, certain that his life is about to end. He slams into the rocky ground with enough force to shatter the earth around him. Yet, as the dust settles, he sits up, completely unscathed. He stares at his hands in disbelief, wondering how he could possibly be alive. His shock deepens as large, leathery wings suddenly sprout from his back. His attention is drawn to the sky above. Soaring through the clouds is a creature of legend, its scales glinting in the light. His eyes widen with wonder as he realizes he is looking at a real dragon. He lands gently on the edge of a cliff, his new wings folded. Before him lies a vast, breathtaking landscape of winding rivers and towering mountains under a sunlit sky. Taking in the view, he calmly assesses his newfound ability, noting that this level of flight is manageable. He plummets through the air, screaming in terror. Even if he is a vampire, he realizes with dawning horror, there's no way he can survive a fall from this height. The impact shatters the ground below. He is certain his soul is no longer connected to his body, lamenting what a short life he had as a vampire. But he rises completely unscathed. He examines his hands, astonished that he isn't dead. This must be the regenerative power of a vampire. He feels a bit foolish for panicking, realizing he needs to adjust his expectations. He pauses, collecting himself, and wondering why he became a vampire in the first place. As he contemplates his next move, a voice interjects, telling him to wait. The voice, Shzard's, explains that it used summoning magic to call forth a soul and has now possessed his body. He wonders aloud if he was chosen as some sort of hero. Shzard's voice cheerfully clarifies that it wasn't like that at all. It was simply that when the magic was cast, he happened to perfectly match the conditions. Confused, he asks what conditions. Shzard's voice clarifies the criteria. Being nocturnal, having a terrible diet of junk food and alcohol, and a lifestyle ruined by late-night gaming. The entity apologizes for dragging him into its own selfish wish. The voice then makes an offer. It will give him everything. All it asks in return is that he take care of this body. Sodto looks up, stunned into silence. With that, a torrent of memories that are not his own floods his mind. He sees Shzard in its original form, happy with a woman it loved. He sees their promises, followed by the moment Shzard revealed its true nature, only to be reviled as a filthy vampire. The woman's final, heartbroken question echoes. Why? The raw emotion of the memory overwhelms him. He screams that he can't forgive such an unreasonable, selfish wish. Tears stream down his face as he clutches his head, realizing these are the memories of the person Shzard loved. He questions how he could possibly grant such a request. He wept, overwhelmed by the entity's final plea, to erase his own existence and live on as a vessel for a vampire's lingering regrets. This was his reincarnation, a life built upon the sacrifice of another's heart and body. Elsewhere, in a rocky cavern under the light of the moon, a young woman found herself cornered. A pack of snarling wolves closed in, their eyes glowing with hunger. Trapped and terrified, she desperately searched for a way out, wondering what she could possibly do. 3 weeks passed. Sodto had begun to adapt to this new world where magic and monsters were real. He sat alone, contemplating his new diet. He mused that while he could eat meat raw, it certainly tasted better cooked, a fact he'd confirmed without much trouble. He had also come to terms with the fact that he could never return to his original world. The initial despair had faded, replaced by a quiet acceptance as he chewed on a piece of raw meat. To his surprise, he discovered that being a vampire didn't mean he could only drink blood. He could eat meat, vegetables, and anything else he could find. With his body now that of a vampire, his former squeamishness about killing animals and eating raw flesh had all but vanished. He celebrated his new, rosy vampire life, Concerns about old age, the stress from his job, and his unhealthy eating habits were all gone. He had obtained a perfect body. With a feeling of gratitude, he decided his next goal was to find a way to coexist with humans. Just as he made this resolution, however, Shzard's memories surged forth. He saw images of humans recoiling in terror, hating and fearing the vampire. He clutched his head, realizing the immense difficulty of his goal. To humans, a vampire was nothing more than a predator. His focus sharpened as he realized there was an even more immediate problem. The food tasted awful. He spat it out, disgusted. Even cooked meat was bland without seasoning, but acquiring spices like salt and pepper would require interacting with people. His dream of a delicious life seemed impossible. Then, for the first time in the forest, he felt it, the presence of a human. A person was nearby. He struck with overwhelming force, obliterating the wolf in a spray of black blood. The girl watched from behind him as he stared at his own hand, realizing the immense power he now wielded. It was far greater than he had anticipated. Despite the violent display, the girl remained surprisingly composed. She introduced herself as Aries, asking if he was lost before pleading for his help. Her calm demeanor caught him off guard. He questioned her lack of fear, asking directly if she wasn't afraid of him, a vampire. Aries confirmed that she knew what he was and had sought him out for that very reason. Pointing to a distant field, she explained that her village was being ravaged by bandits. She pleaded with him, offering what little money she had as payment. When that seemed insufficient, she made a desperate offer, her own body and all of her blood as a sacrifice in exchange for his aid. Her earnest eyes reflected his vampiric form. Her words stunned him. To come this far and make such a proposal. A faint smile played on his lips, revealing his fangs. He had to admit, the girl had remarkable courage to offer her blood as a bargaining chip. He clarified that he didn't need her entire life's blood. A single cup would be more than sufficient. However, he mused aloud that it was a shame, as even vampires grow tired of the same flavor. He then confessed his true desire. He simply wanted to eat delicious food, lamenting his own terrible cooking skills. With that, he agreed to help her village, deciding to accompany her. A thought struck him. If he saved the village, he might be rewarded with some salt. He reasoned that he couldn't just ignore someone in need, even if his contractor was a vampire. Spreading his demonic wings, he announced his departure. Meanwhile, the village was engulfed in flames and chaos. A blond man cried out for them to stay away before being cut down. The bandit leader, a scarred man, laughed cruelly, shouting orders to kill the men and old people, but to capture the women. A young mother held her infant tightly, her face a mask of terror. The bandit leader stood over the fallen villager, axe raised high. He sneered that if the man wanted to escape, he would have to die first. As the villagers struggled, the bandits silenced him with a roar, preparing to deliver the final blow. He sneers at the terrified mother, telling her that if she wants to run, she should strip first and let him have his way with her. He then points his sword at the blond man on the ground, asking if she wants him to die instead. The mother, clutching her baby, begs him not to kill her husband. In response, the woman offers to do anything to save her husband's life. The bandit leader looks her over, remarking that she has a fine face. He dismisses her plea, declaring it's too late. He pronounces that her husband will be executed for the hideous crime of being her spouse. The woman watches in horror as he raises his bloody blade. With a sadistic grin, he asks if it isn't a blessing, in a way, to die without having to watch his wife be taken by another. He roars for the man to die as he brings the sword down, but the blade never connects. A shadowy, clawed hand intercepts the strike, shattering the steel. Sodto appears in a burst of dark energy, his form materializing between the bandit and his victim. He reaches out a hand, calmly asking the woman if she's all right. His sudden appearance sends a wave of terror through the crowd. The village mother screams for the monster to stay away. The bandits recoil in shock, one of them identifying the newcomer as a vampire. He smirks, unsurprised by their fear. He muses to himself that this is the natural reaction when a demon suddenly appears, offering itself as their savior. He turns his attention to the bandits, declaring he'll deal with them first. Looking at his hand, he realizes that killing a few people should be surprisingly easy. He then notices the scent of a vampire in the air, a natural byproduct of a human-eating vampire. A dark, viscous liquid begins to coalesce around him as he prepares to fight. With a sharp, predatory grin, he commands the blood to scatter. The orb of dark liquid explodes into a volley of sharp projectiles, hurtling towards the stunned bandits who can only cry out in confusion. The blood projectiles pierce the bandits with lethal force, tearing through them. In the background, Ailey watches the carnage unfold. She understands that if she doesn't stop him, the villagers' terror will overwhelm them, and they will turn on their savior. A commotion erupts in the village as the bandit leader demands to know the source of the noise, wondering if it's the Lord's forces or magic. Spotting Sodto, he confronts him, declaring that no one leaves his territory as they please. Sodto calmly introduces himself as Sodto, asking if the bandit would prefer he continue using his previous name, which gives the man pause. The bandit leader scoffs at his vampiric appearance and blood magic. He boasts that his axe is coated in holy water, a known vampire weakness. Spurred on by this confidence, another bandit charges forward, swinging his own axe and yelling that a low-class vampire shouldn't get cocky. The holy water-laced weapon strikes Sodto's arm, causing the flesh to sizzle and dissolve. Vampires, though fearsome monsters capable of transformation and regeneration, possess many fatal weaknesses. A weapon purified by holy water is one such vulnerability, as is garlic in sunlight. In the instant following the blow, the attacking bandit's head violently explodes in a spray of dark energy and blood. The bandit leader stares in disbelief, wondering if Sodto had somehow self-destructed from the holy weapon's touch. He lets out a derisive laugh, mocking the supposed vampire for being unable to withstand the holy water. He calls him a fool, declaring it a shame, but an unfortunate miss on his part. His mockery is cut short as Sodto stands perfectly unharmed, his arm already regenerating. Sodto calmly asks why the holy water isn't working and suggests the bandit should regenerate his own lost companion. The bandit is stunned into silence, demanding to know what Sodto is. With a cold gaze, Sodto simply states his name is Ryudo. This display of power defies known lore. A vampire is akin to an evil spirit, its physical form merely a construct. The true essence of the creature is the soul that resides within that body. While the body of an immortal vampire can be destroyed by its weaknesses, holy water, stakes, crosses, the soul within is what is truly purified. However, if a human soul is mixed in with the vampires, the weaknesses that affect evil spirits become completely ineffective. Sodto realizes he is no ordinary vampire. He smiles, a predatory glint in his eyes. With his soul being fundamentally human, he declares himself a vampire with zero weaknesses. This declaration terrifies the bandit leader, who realizes he is facing not just a powerful monster, but one with overwhelming magical might. As he wonders how he could possibly win, Sodto casually flicks his wrist. The bandit's remaining arm explodes, just as his companion's head did. Sodto coolly states that the explanation is now over. He holds the defeated bandit leader by the head, effortlessly tossing him aside. The remaining bandits flee in terror, screaming that it's impossible to win against such a powerful monster. His attention turns from the fleeing bandits to the village itself, recalling the leader's claim that he had been promised free reign. As the terrified villagers whisper and recoil, Aries steps forward, explaining to the others that she was the one who sought out the vampire from the forest for help. A rugged-looking villager, however, remains defiant, telling Sodto that in exchange for leaving, he can do as he pleases with the territory. He pays the man no mind, instead surveying the wounded villagers scattered across the ground. An elder calls out Ailey's name in shock, but Sodto interrupts, declaring that they will talk later. First, he must tend to the injured. He kneels beside a grievously wounded young man, observing that the boy will die from blood loss if nothing is done. He explains that he is incapable of using healing magic, but offers a somewhat crude alternative. As he speaks, he gently places his hand over the deep, bleeding gash on the young man's arm. With a quiet command for the blood to coagulate, the wound miraculously seals itself shut, leaving behind a significant scar. The young man's mother cries out in thanks, but Sodto clarifies that it is not a perfect cure and the scar will remain. He then asks her to point out the other injured villagers who need assistance. A wave of relief washes over the villagers. The young man stares at his newly scarred but fully healed arm in astonishment as families embrace, safe at last. With the injured tended to, his focus shifts to a burning building. He announces that firefighting is next on the agenda. The elder begins to dismiss the concern, but Sodto clarifies his intent. He will destroy the burning house to prevent the fire from spreading to the others. He takes a deep breath and unleashes a powerful force, causing the entire structure to violently explode into a shower of wooden splinters. The villagers can only stare, their faces a mixture of terror and disbelief at the overwhelming display of power. In the stunned silence that follows, Ailey quietly thanks him. He turns away, dismissing her gratitude by muttering that no mere human could accomplish such a feat, implying his actions are nothing to be thankful for. He turns back to face her, a faint, knowing smile revealing his fangs as he states that he had his own reasons for offering his help. Ailey looks back, puzzled by his words, just as the village elder calls out to her from distance. The rugged villager angrily recounts their broken pact with the Lord, shouting that they had agreed to let the Lord do as he pleased with the village in exchange for protection. The village elder, his eyes closed in resignation, clarifies that he had pleaded for subjugation, but their requests were utterly ignored. Listening to their plight, Sodto Ryudo interjects, summarizing the situation. The village was attacked by bandits despite its obligation to pay taxes to the Lord for protection. He then points out a crucial detail. Those very bandits emerged from the Lord's own territory. His words hang in the air, causing the elder's eyes to widen in dawning horror. Sodto watches him, his own expression calm and analytical, as he poses a chilling question. Was it possible the village had been deliberately abandoned by its lord? He continues his cold assessment, explaining that a band of thieves at large should have been subjugated the moment they entered the Lord's domain. The villagers, he concludes, face two paths to ruin: abandon their homes with no guarantee of survival, or stay and be annihilated. Then he offers a third choice. He declares that if a similar situation arises again, the village will surely be destroyed. Therefore, in place of their neglectful lord, the vampire, Ryudo, will protect the village. This, he announces, is the first step toward their coexistence. His proposal concludes with a wide, fanged grin and a simple, almost gleeful condition. In this village, he will eat delicious food to his heart's content. The village elder confronts the vampire, Sodto Ryudo, with suspicion. He questions the idea of a vampire protecting a human village, asking if Ryudo intends to suck them dry. Ryudo, with a confident smile, clarifies that while he will indeed take their blood, he has no intention of killing them. Finding the arrangement far too convenient, the elder demands to know Ryudo's true objective. The vampire explains that he doesn't just want their blood. He also desires the things that humans create. Ryudo elaborates that he wishes to add some color to his meals. The elder recoils in horror, clutching a small cup and stammering, asking if the vampire means to eat them. He frantically corrects the grave misunderstanding, shouting that he wants seasonings. He clarifies that things like salt, sugar, and pepper are what he's after, not people. The elder seems to finally comprehend the request. Having cleared the air, Ryudo gestures broadly, telling the elder to take his time and discuss the proposal with the rest of the villagers. The young woman, Ailey, stands quietly by his side. Later, Ailey, now wearing an eye patch, questions Ryudo directly. She asks why a vampire would want to become the village chief, stating she understands his first objective is to eat well, but wants to know his second. Ryudo appears flustered by her direct, almost accusatory gaze. He presents a book titled Vampire and Human Coexistence, revealing his second wish. It is a request inherited from someone else, to create a village where the two species can live together. He feels the weight of her expectant gaze, determined to see this wish fulfilled. She remarks that the gap between his goals is too wide, suggesting he should act more vulgar. Enraged, Ryudo shouts back that this is a request from another, not some simple whim of a vampire. Unfazed, she points out the inherent difficulty, as a vampire is a predator and a human is prey. As Ryudo contemplates how to achieve this, she smiles faintly and tells him to try. She then turns toward the gathered villagers, asking if she, an outsider, can consult with them. She declares herself an outsider with no right to speak on the village's behalf. She states she won't speak ill of a vampire who came to their aid, just as she did. Her words clear the way for a decision. The village elder steps forward, bowing deeply. He formally asks Ryudo to protect them, pledging their obedience. He stands before the girl, arms spread wide in a grand gesture. With a confident grin, he declares that he, Ryudo Sodto, will protect this village. He will become its new chief. Taking charge immediately, he surveys the damaged landscape. His first order of business, he announces, is to repair the village. He instructs the people to clear the rubble while he procures lumber from the forest. As the villagers begin their work, he reflects internally. This, he realizes, is the first step toward the coexistence of humans and vampires. With that thought, he turns and strides away. The girl with the eye patch watches him go, a flicker of surprise on her face as he heads toward the trees. He stops without fully turning around, sensing her presence. He questions why she is following him, warning that the forest is dangerous and filled with monsters. She catches up, grabbing his sleeve. She insists it's safe as long as she's with him, admitting her stubborn nature prevents her from being afraid. He questions her, asking if she's truly not afraid of him. She confirms it, and he seems to relent, asking what she intends to do. He bites his thumb, drawing a drop of blood. Announcing that he will call upon his servant, he tells her to step back. A glowing magical circle materializes beneath his feet as he holds a book aloft, commanding a being to answer his call and appear before him, a witness to the world's boundary. He roars the final command. Break the providence and appear here. The girl can only watch, her visible eye wide with astonishment. In response to his call, a massive, shadowy form with demonic wings coalesces from the magical circle, a creature of pure darkness. His voice echoes, declaring his desire is but a single drop of blood. The creature solidifies, a monstrous, bat-like familiar born of shadow and magic. Ailey stares, completely captivated and speechless at the spectacle. She stared, bewildered, as the monstrous form dissolved, leaving behind three peculiar creatures. A bat-like being named Quirce, a mole in spectacles called Mogurin, and a fluffy moth named Gon presented themselves, announcing they had found what was sought. As Mogurin fretted over its tail, Ailey could only stammer, asking what they were. Sodto calmly introduced them as his familiars. He then presented a large potato, revealing his plan to cultivate them in the fields and mass-produce them alongside other crops. Ailey, whose people were gaunt and underfed, looked up with a glimmer of hope, asking if this meant they would have plenty to eat. With a reassuring smile, he confirmed that they would. Touched by his efforts, Ailey suggested that he should change the name of the Hikkidamono, the Outcasts. The idea seemed to startle Sodto, who recoiled slightly. Meanwhile, he had already dispatched his familiar, Quirce, on a scouting mission, discovering a den of thieves nearby. He turned his attention back to her, asking if she was aware of these bandits. He reasoned that if they were a band of thieves, they must be hoarding a significant amount of money. She questioned why he would bother with them, but Sodto's plan was already clear. He declared his intent to seize their treasure and use it as capital for the village's development. As Quirce, the bat, chirped this way, Sodto commanded it to guide them. Confronted by a group of bandits, Sodto Ryudo stands with his vampiric wings unfurled, holding the small village girl. The bandit leader, a man with a prominent scar, orders his men to prepare for a fight, believing a vampire has come to kill them. He tells them to grab their treasure and run. Sodto, however, clarifies his intentions with a sharp smile. He is not there for their blood, but for their gold. The bandits stare back, terrified. One of the men foolishly charges forward, weapon raised. With a swift, almost imperceptible movement, Sodto's cape lashes out, and the bandit's head is severed from his shoulders. As the body falls, Sodto's gaze narrows, silently wondering who will be next. The display of power shatters the bandits' resolve. Their leader falls to his knees, pleading for his life. He begs Sodto to wait, claiming they will surrender. He confesses that they only became thieves because they were starving and had no other choice. Following their leader's lead, the rest of the bandits drop to their knees. They echo his sentiment, insisting they never wanted this life. As a group, they offer up all their stolen treasure, hoping to trade it for their survival. Sodto remains unmoved by their pleas. He tells them that even if their story is true, it sounds like a lie after all the misery they have inflicted upon the village. As he speaks, a dark, viscous substance begins to pool on the ground, a manifestation of his power. The bandits watch in horror as the black liquid spreads. Tendrils of the black substance erupt from the ground, ensnaring the bandits. The leader screams for them to relinquish their lives as he is consumed. The others cry out in terror, questioning what this horrifying substance is. The dark ooze swarms over the men, their panicked screams echoing as they are completely overwhelmed and dissolved by the strange, living darkness. The bandit leader, half dissolved, reaches out a final, desperate hand. He curses the vampire before his body disintegrates completely. Sodto watches the scene dispassionately, his own hand dripping with the same black substance, as the girl stands silently behind it. The village girl looks upon the remains, remarking that he is destroying them. She calls him a cold-blooded demon. Hearing this, Sodto turns to her with a slight, almost amused smile, questioning her description of him. He kneels beside the bags of treasure the bandits left behind. He tells her that he's hurt too, in his own way, and dismisses her accusation, saying that the idea of a cold-blooded demon is just a joke. He glances at the young woman beside him, noting that she saw something terrible. She turns away slightly, insisting that she is fine. As they walk, he offers a quiet apology. The girl dismisses it, suggesting it's pointless for him to force a certain demeanor when being a vampire hunter is a more fitting role for him. She then questions his sudden change to a more formal tone. Visibly tired from carrying the heavy chest, he brushes off her concern, stating they should just return to the village to begin the subjugation. Internally, he grimaces at the thought of being killed by a vampire hunter. Unseen by them, a dark crow watches from a nearby branch before taking to the sky with a sudden flap of its wings. The girl notices his distraction and asks what's wrong, but he dismisses it. Their path is suddenly blocked by an armored woman. She remarks with disappointment that her next target isn't the vampire she was seeking, just as the crow lands on her outstretched arm. Her expression shifts as she realizes she has found her true quarry after all. Her gaze hardens, and a dark aura begins to emanate from her. She declares with cold fury that vampires are unforgivable, and she will be the one to annihilate them. 3 days have passed since Sodto Ryudo's arrival. While the villagers have been given potatoes to plant, he has taken it upon himself to hunt in the forest, providing a steady supply of meat from the BC fells. The responsibility of cooking the meat belongs to a young woman named Aries. Today, however, another girl with a distinctive eye patch handles the task, skillfully grilling the cuts of meat over a fire with surprising expertise. Elsewhere, deep in the woods, a pair of villagers call out respectfully to the vampire lord, asking for his permission to cut down a particular tree. In response, Sodto appears in a blur of motion, felling the massive tree with a single, powerful chop of his hand. The villagers are stunned into silence by the display of power, with one proclaiming that the wood he provided should be treasured more than their own lives. Sodto seems slightly taken aback by their intense reverence. He finds their attitude deeply unsettling. It's clear to him that they are terrified, and their fear has been bothering him for some time. Meanwhile, Ailey peeks out from a doorway, overhearing her mother, Mel, arguing with another woman. Mel insists it's wrong to allow a vampire to live among them, and that they cannot rely on him for protection, convinced that her daughter and the others are being deceived. Her mother's furious declaration that she will hunt the vampire herself reaches Sotto's ears. He dismisses the threat, deciding it's better not to bare his fangs and further intimidate the already frightened villagers. His quiet contemplation is interrupted when the eye-patch girl finds Ailey. She urgently explains that Ailey's mother has been possessed by a demon and will meet a terrible fate if not helped soon. She presses a wrapped package into Ailey's hands. Clutching the package, she nervously approaches Sodto. He asks what she wants, and she startles before presenting him with a gift, garlic rub-dried meat. He accepts it graciously. Ailey watches, certain that the garlic will inflict at least some damage upon the vampire. He takes a bite, and his face lights up. He declares it delicious, praising how well the garlic flavor comes through. Ailey is frozen in disbelief. Garlic is supposed to be a vampire's weakness, but this one enjoys it. Realizing her subtle attack has been exposed, she knows she must flee before he connects the dots. She turns and flees, calling out that she will see him again tomorrow. He watches her depart, a pensive look on his face as he processes her words. As she retreats to a safe distance, her expression crumples with worry. She realizes with dawning horror that the garlic had no effect at all. She may have simply given him a treat. Meanwhile, Sodto continues to savor the food, remarking on its deliciousness. Her resolve hardens. She understands she was far too timid and must be more audacious in her next attempt. The following day, work continues in the village. Sodto effortlessly carries a heavy bundle of logs, earning a cheerful greeting from one of the men. He observes that their work is advancing well. He sets the logs down near a large, prepared plot of earth. A villager reports that the foundation is laid, but still needs to be secured. Unseen by the workers, the girl with the eye patch peeks from around a corner, clutching a small, dark vial. In response, Sodto extends his hand, sharp claws emerging from his fingertips. With a swift motion, he slices his palm open, spraying his own blood across the ground. Ailey, watching from a distance, gasps in horror, unable to comprehend his actions. He issues a command for his blood to coagulate. As the crimson liquid seeps into the loose earth, it sizzles and rapidly hardens, transforming the entire foundation into a solid, dark mass. With the foundation now completely solid, he turns to the stunned villagers. He explains that this will make building the walls much faster, but the men can only stare, remarking on how easy he made it look, yet how unsettling the method was. He asks them what is the matter. One of the men, his fear giving way to gratitude, claps him on the shoulder and thanks him, calling him by his name, Ryudo. The casual use of his name leaves him momentarily flustered. The eye patch girl steps forward, bluntly stating that everyone is troubled because he used his blood to build the house, which they find terrifying. Her words strike Sodto with the force of a physical blow as he realizes his faux pas. He reflects on his actions, realizing with a start that from a human perspective, a house solidified with blood is nothing short of a horror house. He admits to himself that he wouldn't want to live in such a place either. From behind a nearby wall, Ailey watches him. She recalls his promise not to touch the walls of her family's home, only to realize he intended for them to live in a house made of blood. The word vampire echoes in her mind with renewed fear. She sees an opening. Believing this is her only chance, she resolves to act. Her plan is to shove a clove of garlic into his mouth and then stab him with a silver fork. With trembling hands, she prepares to lunge, her face a mixture of determination and terror. Before she can strike, he turns to her with a disarming smile, asking if she's offering him the garlic. He graciously accepts it and eats it, much to her shock. Her eyes widen in disbelief. Suddenly, his expression darkens with rage, and he lunges toward her as she screams, convinced she is about to be killed. The expected blow never comes. Instead, she finds herself held safely in his arms. He asks if she is all right. Confused, she wonders why it doesn't hurt. She then realizes he wasn't angry at her at all. He was reacting to a giant hornet that had been hovering right behind her. He continues to hold her, reassuring her with a confident smile. He tells her not to be angry, as he is there to protect everyone in the village. He promises that he will not bring them any harm and that they can feel safe with him. Overwhelmed by his kindness and her own misunderstanding, Ailey bursts into tears, apologizing profusely. As he continues to hold her, Sodto calmly offers to walk her home. Through her sobs, she meekly accepts. After he escorts her home, Ailey waves goodbye, remarking that the vampire is a warm and kind person. He waves back before departing. A moment later, a puzzled look crosses her face as she tries to remember something that now escapes her. He walks away from her home, feeling pleased with himself. He has made his decision. As he passes by, he overhears two villagers, Mel and another man, commenting on how incredibly handsome and cool he is. Their praise confirms his thoughts. He notices the gazes of other villagers on him and wonders what it is. Closing his eyes with a serene smile, he concludes that contrary to his fears, he is surprisingly popular. Coexisting with humans, he thinks, might be easy after all. He stands triumphantly atop the frame of his new home, declaring his intent to finish construction. Nearby, the girl with the eye patch greets him with a simple welcome back, though she inwardly finds his smug expression unsettling. He turns to her, questioning why she is at his home when she has her own, and urges her to finish building it so she has a place to sleep. She casually replies that coming to visit is easier than going home, remarking that he seems to be without a single care in the world. Her tone shifts as she mentions there is something she is curious about. Intrigued, he asks what it is. Suddenly, a sharp pain pierces his back. He cries out as a fork embeds itself near his spine, wondering if this is yet another hostile reaction from the villagers. As a mother and her amused child look on, the eye patch girl calmly asks from behind him if being stabbed with the fork hurts. The mother gasps in shock at the sight. Furious, he yanks the utensil free and whirls around, demanding the little brat return it to its owner. The girl, however, simply states that she wants that specific fork to eat meat with. She then questions his sanity, asking if he's really going to use a fork that was just stuck in his back. A week has passed since Sodto Ryudo completed his new home in the village. Lying in his coffin bed, he reflects that he hasn't consumed any blood recently and wonders if he's becoming anemic. Just then, the eye patch girl enters, announcing that she is his alarm clock and it's time to wake up. She tells him not to worry about chores, as she'll handle them, and that he should get used to his new home. Sitting up, He tells her to take it easy. Before he can properly start his day, the village elder bursts in, shouting that it's an emergency. He frantically explains that a tax collector is approaching the village and that they cannot afford to let him rest. Now fully dressed in his formal attire, Sodto questions the man's panic. The elder clarifies that the collector has come to demand taxes far earlier than expected. He turns to the eye patch girl, stating his intention to assess the situation himself and asks her to let him pass, questioning why she's acting as if he isn't there. She stammers, caught off guard by his directness. His expression hardens. He needs to confirm with his own eyes whether the Lord has truly abandoned this village to its fate. Nearby, the rugged villager explains to the others that while they have circumstantial evidence of the Lord's neglect, nothing is certain. The elder adds that their pleas to the Lord for a subjugation force were completely ignored. The situation becomes clear. To investigate discreetly, Sodto decides to use his transformation ability. With a soft pop, he morphs into a small, chubby bat. The eye patch girl marvels at the impressive skill, but when he asks her to open a window, she calls him reckless and tells him to be quiet, clearly amused. He flies towards the center of the village, where the tax collector is addressing the assembled villagers. The official declares a punitive tax, demanding 80% of their harvest. From his vantage point, Sodto recognizes how outrageous this is. A normal tax is closer to 50%, and the current 60% is already unsustainable. Annoyed by the villagers' murmurs, the tax collector silences them with a sharp command. He threatens that any defiance will be met with death, and his two armored guards draw their swords to emphasize the point. From above, the bat confirms his suspicions. The Lord has intended to abandon this village from the very beginning. As the tax collector impatiently warns the villagers that their hesitation will lead to the village's ruin, Sodto understands the grim reality. A new voice cuts through the tension, asking who they are. Sodto Ryudo appears before them in a swirl of magical energy. He declares himself the new chief of the village and announces that he will rule in their lord's stead. As such, he proclaims, the taxes they owe are now 0. The guards react with shock, one blurting out a question about him being a vampire, while the other dismisses it as nonsense. He listens as the tax collector dismisses his declaration, shouting that a vampire is spouting nonsense. Sodto, however, remains calm, finding the man's earnestness somewhat tiresome. As the official continues to rage about the vampire's foolishness, a colossal, dark-scaled dragon erupts into existence behind Sodto, its shadow falling over the terrified man. The dragon's roar echoes, a clear command for the intruders to depart. While the tax collector and his guards recoil in pure terror, the villagers express their gratitude. He simply reminds them of his promise to protect their home, even as the official shrieks for aid. With a confident smile, he clarifies his position to the horrified officials. He will indeed be collecting a tax, but it will be paid in blood. He then produces a syringe, explaining his new system. He will protect the village, and in exchange for their harvest, the people will provide him with blood. Calling the eye patch girl forward, he demonstrates, gently inserting the needle into her arm. He internally reflects on his plan, believing this blood tax system could be the key to peaceful coexistence between humans and vampires. The villagers murmur among themselves, quickly realizing that this new tax is a far better alternative. The village elder, concerned, asks the young woman if she is all right. A female knight in full armor confronts Sodto Ryudo, demanding he release the villagers. Ryudo calmly tells her to relax, assuring her he has not harmed anyone. The knight, however, sees only a vampire. Declaring she will vanquish the darkness before any harm can be done, she raises her greatsword, preparing to strike. She brings the blade down with a powerful cry, but Ryudo stops the glowing sword with his bare hand. The knight stares in shock, questioning why her holy magic, imbued in the sword, has no effect. She realizes his defensive power is immense, far greater than that of even a high-ranking vampire. He coolly informs her that holy magic is useless against him. Refusing to believe it, she resolves to try another attack. She plants her sword in the ground, calling upon the Holy Sun and offering her life as a vessel to protect the divine mystery and unleash a great, darkness-cleaving power. A blinding flash erupts from her position as she unleashes the sunlight of ruin. The sheer intensity of the light forces Ryudo to shield his eyes in surprise, while the eye patch girl flinches away from the glare. As the light subsides, Ryudo stands completely unharmed. The knight can only stare in utter disbelief, realizing with a gasp that he withstood her ultimate holy magic. She identifies him as a special class of vampire. Her confidence is shattered. She cannot comprehend how her attack failed. Ryudo, however, simply stands with his arms crossed, looking entirely unimpressed as she grits her teeth in frustration. The strain of the powerful spell is too much, and the knight collapses to the floor. Ryudo comments that an ultimate holy magic meant to annihilate a vampire hunter was quite something. Nearby, the eye patch girl looks at the book in his hand, wondering what it is. He explains that the book is a diary from his body's original owner, filled with various notes and preparations for his own growth. Looking down at the fallen knight, Ryudo considers that this girl, who would sacrifice herself for others, might be useful in achieving coexistence with vampires. The knight begins to stir, shouting for the vampire to be on guard before her eyes focus. She sees Ryudo holding a silver sword and demands to know why a vampire possesses such a weapon. He turns the question back on her, asking who she is. With a confident smile and bared fangs, he introduces himself as Ryudo Sodto, a vampire slightly out of step with the world's providence. He then asks for her name. The knight, still on the floor, looks up at him and replies, Aries. He confirmed her suspicion, stating that he was indeed from the Vampire Hunters Guild. Internally, however, he recalled a passage from Shzard's diary describing the guild as a fraudulent organization, preying on people for money. She retorted that her purpose was to save the innocent, not to deal with him. She accused him of luring vampires to the village and using the people as bait, even burning down their homes. Hearing this, Ryudo seemed to find the situation favorable. He then made an unexpected proposal, that she should stay in the village for a while. As she stared in confusion, he explained his goal was to rule the village to foster coexistence between humans and vampires, and that her presence as a vampire hunter would be a peculiar but useful factor in his plans. He continued, explaining that her strong sense of justice made her the perfect obstacle. He wanted her to be the one to kill him if he ever strayed from his path. With that, he formally introduced himself as Sodto Ryudo. She, in turn, gave her name, Aries. Flustered but resolute, Aries declared she would remain in the village, but on her own terms. She then returned the silver sword to him. Surprised, he asked why she was giving it back, and she replied that she couldn't simply take another's weapon. Realizing she would need lodging, he offhandedly mentioned that rent was 1 gold coin a day, an outrageous price. Just then, the eye patch girl appeared, stating that there was no choice but to lend Aries a room. She pointed toward a nearby building, clarifying that her house was vacant and that Aries was welcome to use it. The knight, taken aback by the offer, turned to face her. The girl then turned her attention to Ryudo, bluntly asking what he was trying to achieve by inviting another vampire hunter into the village. Both Ryudo and Aries were momentarily stunned by her direct question. He considered his true intentions. He hoped Aries would become a spiritual pillar for the people, a constant ally they could depend on, which would in turn help his grander plan for coexistence. As he remained silent, the eye patch girl simply smiled and wished him luck. Within his opulent manner, a portly lord receives a report. His tax collector explains that Shina village has not only refused to pay their taxes, but has also appointed a vampire as their new chief. The lord, swirling a drink, seethes at the news, questioning how a mere branch of the West Barony's vampire clan could dare to seize his territory. The tax collector continues, stating that he had attempted to request the guild to hunt the vampire. He slams his fist on his surface in frustration, shouting that his request was flatly denied. In response, the lord scoffs at the idea of needing a rescue request and the exorbitant fees that would entail. He declares that even an ordinary vampire can be subjugated by soldiers. With 1,000 troops at his command, he boasts, victory is assured through sheer numbers, regardless of the vampire's strength. His face contorts with fury. He gives a chilling command, kill every last villager for siding with a vampire. The best course of action, he decides, is to burn the entire village to the ground and destroy the vampire along with it. Meanwhile, in the village, the female knight, Aries, lunges at Sodto Ryudo. With fluid grace, he sidesteps her sword strike and delivers a precise kick, knocking her off balance. She tumbles to the ground, complaining that he isn't weak even during the day. Ryudo coolly replies that it would be pointless if he were. As Aries tells him not to get cocky, Ryudo reflects on her constant, tiresome attacks. He finds this vampire hunter's persistence a nuisance, especially when he has work to do. His irritation fades when a young farmer boy runs up, happily reporting that the potatoes they planted have sprouted. Ryudo smiles, thanking the boy and encouraging him to continue his efforts. He cheerfully imagines a future potato party with fries, gratin, and salad. Later, the village girl, Ailey, approaches him, reminding him that it is nearly time for the assembly. He acknowledges her, surprised at how quickly the time has passed. He then stands before the gathered villagers to conduct their first meeting. He announces that their first order of business is to decide on a new name for their home. The village elder questions this, stating that the village has always been called Shina. Ryudo explains that a new name is needed to signify that the ruler has changed, suggesting Drac as a candidate. As he speaks, a memory flashes in his mind of Aries charging at him, shouting for the vampire to prepare himself. He turns to leave, but the female knight, Aries, watches him with a confident smirk, believing she has the upper hand. He stops and turns, his expression hardening. He reminds her that he agreed to cooperate, but that this time and place are not of her choosing. With a flash of movement, he cuts down an unseen assailant behind him. He then declares himself the village chief, asserting that his perception of time is vastly different from a mortal's. Her resolve wavers, but she quickly regains her composure, insisting that she must defeat him and leave the village to protect its people from the threat he represents. He acknowledges her desire to protect humans, but points out that her current methods are flawed. Therefore, he proposes they establish some rules. He gestures towards the onlookers, proposing a daily duel in the village square when the sun is at its peak. He points out that the villagers are already gathering, using their valuable time to witness the proceedings. The villagers murmur amongst themselves, with the elder and the rugged villager agreeing that this arrangement keeps the vampire occupied and prevents disruptions to their work. The eye patch girl adds that this is far preferable to dealing with a rampaging monster. Aries listens, her expression turning to one of utter disbelief. Overwhelmed by their logic, she collapses to her knees in apology, mortified by her actions. Sodto looks down at her, telling her that for now, she is forgiven. Tears of shame well up in her eyes. Despite her apology, her fighting spirit reignites. Through her tears, she vows to challenge him every single day, warning him to be ready. Sodto simply tells her to wait. In response, she hurls a vial of holy water at him. The liquid splashes across his cape, and he recoils in annoyance, complaining that his clothes are getting wet. She stares, aghast, questioning why his clothes are his primary concern. From the crowd, the rugged villager cheers for Aries-chan, revealing he saw her preparing the holy water at the well yesterday. She swings her sword in frustration, shouting that holy water is meant to be a vampire's weakness, yet it isn't working. Seeing her frustration, he strikes a dramatic pose, then vanishes in a blur of motion. He reappears directly in front of her, fist drawn back, chiding her for being too restless. He moves with impossible speed, his hand a blur as he strikes Aries' sword, sending it flying from her grasp. The knight can only watch, her eyes wide with shock at being so utterly outmatched. The duel ends in his decisive victory. As Aries kneels in defeat, the watching villagers erupt into cheers. The eye-patch girl exclaims how amazing the vampire is, while others shout praises for his strength. This scene becomes a daily occurrence. For several days, the duels continue, transforming into a regular source of entertainment for the entire village. One of the farmers remarks that they should be getting back to work, but wonders aloud who will win the next day's match. After one such duel, Sodto addresses the defeated knight, confirming they will fight again tomorrow. He notes with a smile that the villagers are enjoying themselves, which is good, but then cryptically adds that Aries has only a little time left. She looks up at him, confused by his words, and asks what he's getting at. He simply smiles and asks why she doesn't just win. Her patience snaps, and she shouts at him to be quiet. Her frustration boils over into tears. She cries out that she swore she wouldn't lose to a vampire, and that she's supposed to be stronger now, questioning why she still can't win. As Sodto looks on, the village elder suddenly rushes forward, shouting that it's a disaster and that a clear weakness has been revealed to their enemies. The elder's warning is immediately substantiated as he reveals that a fearsome military force is now heading towards their village. Through the forest, a long column of armored soldiers marches, led by a determined knight on horseback. A knight commander on horseback, flanked by armored soldiers, arrives at a settlement. He announces their arrival at Shinana village. His expression hardens as he declares their purpose: to deal with a vampire, a creature he describes as a living corpse that preys on people. He proclaims with conviction that it must be slain. He then issues a brutal command to his troops: burn the entire village and slaughter every last villager. He specifies that the buildings are the primary target and orders them to prepare fire arrows. His soldiers comply, knocking the flaming projectiles. As the archers draw their bows, a figure suddenly appears, demanding to know who gave them permission to burn his village. It is Sodto Ryudo, his vampiric wings unfurled. The commander stares in shock. He lands softly on the ground. The commander, regaining his composure, asks if he is the vampire they seek. Sodto confirms it and makes a bold proclamation: Shinana village is now Dracula village, and it is under his rule. In response to this declaration, the commander scoffs from his horse, dismissing Sotto's posturing. His soldiers, however, are visibly unnerved, muttering amongst themselves about the vampire's formidable appearance. The villagers stand behind Sodto, a makeshift militia armed with farming tools. One of them reveals they were lured into service with promises of reward money to help them survive the coming winter. Sodto listens intently as the rugged villager explains their situation. He confirms that while their village was abandoned by the Lord, other villages in the territory are still being exploited for taxes, meaning the Lord has no right to interfere here. Sodto considers this information, pondering his next move. He then turns his attention back to the commander, questioning if their true goal is simply to drive him out. He challenges them to target him directly. Enraged, the rugged villager shouts that they all worked hard to rebuild their homes. The commander ignores him, ordering his soldiers not to falter and to prepare holy water. With a final decisive shout, the commander orders his men to fire. The archers release their arrows, and a volley strikes Sodto directly in the chest. As the vampire gasps, the commander smirks, declaring that a mere vampire is no match for the darkness in the human heart. He dissolves into a swarm of dark, bat-like shapes, the volley of arrows passing harmlessly through the space he once occupied. Watching from a distance, the female knight and the girl with the eye-patch stare in wide-eyed disbelief at the impossible sight. Before they could process what they had seen, he materializes directly behind the knight commander, completely unscathed. He calmly asks if something just happened, as the soldiers below gasp in terror. The commander, sweating with fear, turns and bellows an order to his men. He commands them to kill the vampire at any cost, realizing that arrows are ineffective and they must resort to dousing him directly with holy water. His soldiers, however, are paralyzed by fear. They tremble, questioning how anyone could survive such a direct assault. Seeing their hesitation, the commander shouts at them not to be cowards. He has deduced that the vampire must be specialized in defense, and that brute force is not the answer. In response, the vampire simply smiles. With a casual stomp, he shatters the ground, sending a powerful shockwave that blasts the knights backward as he mockingly asks what's wrong. As the dust settles, he stands over them and addresses the soldiers directly. He declares his intention to expand this village and create a nation where both vampires and humans can coexist. He then offers them a choice. They have 60 seconds to flee and spread this message. If they do, he will spare their lives this time. The ultimatum throws the soldiers into chaos. One stammers an apology for ever challenging him, while others shout their intent to flee. The commander, however, roars for them to wait, forbidding their retreat and threatening to brand any who flee as sinners. One soldier, defiant, declares they will fight him on their own terms. His command to execute the entire clan was cut short. In a blur of motion, Sodto descended, his cape flaring like wings. A dark slash tore through the commander's horse, felling the beast and its rider in a single, fluid strike. Sodto's expression remained cold and impassive. He had given them a chance, and it was their own fault for not fleeing. Sodto stood beside the eye patch girl, contemplating his next move. He had considered not killing the commander, but a new thought surfaced. If he let the man return alive, the innocent soldiers under his command might be executed for the failure. He wondered where these common foot soldiers even came from. His mind raced through the possibilities. Killing the soldiers to secure a stock of blood was an option, but doing so would cause the entire blood tax system to collapse. That system, he realized, was indispensable for the coexistence of villagers and vampires. Pulled from his thoughts, he noticed the eye patch girl still standing there silently. He turned to her, arms crossed, and asked if she needed something else. She questioned why he was being so serious, stating plainly that she just wanted to eat delicious food, and that was her only concern. With a dismissive wave, she told him to go handle the post-battle arrangements, leaving him momentarily stunned by her nonchalance. Heeding her command, Sodto turned his attention to the defeated soldiers. They were scattered on the ground, paralyzed with fear. One of them stammered, asking what was happening to them as another whimpered beside him. Approaching one of the men, Sodto wished they would simply run away, as he had no desire to kill them. He leaned in and asked the trembling soldier why he wasn't fleeing for his life. Before the soldier could answer, a heavy, armored boot slammed onto the ground nearby. A sharp voice cried out, "Wait!" The knight, Aries, stood between Sodto and the soldiers, her sword drawn. She declared that she would cut him down if he made any suspicious moves. She explained that the man he had defeated was just a farmer, and she would not allow him to kill innocent people. Flustered, Sodto raised his hands, trying to assure her that he had no intention of killing anyone. The tense standoff continued, with Aries' blade pointed at Sodto. From the ground, one of the terrified soldiers suddenly cried out, begging Sodto to just kill them if that was his plan. His plea was echoed by the others. They explained that they had nowhere to return to. The harvest had failed this year, and there would be no food for them if they went back to their village. The soldiers explained their grim logic. They were laid off and can only earn merit through battle. If they die, their families receive compensation. Sodto listens to their plight, letting out a weary sigh. He then makes them an unexpected offer to live in his village. He explains that he will accept them all, increasing the village's population. He promises to provide food by hunting in the forest and notes that with more people, they can expand the fields. The soldiers look at him, stunned and confused. He continues, laying out his terms from a distance. If they are willing to contribute to the village's development, he will welcome them. He assures them he has no intention of drinking their blood. To prove his point, he tells them to look behind him, towards the village itself. One of the soldiers turns, his expression filled with disbelief at what he sees. The soldier's gaze falls upon a thriving community of healthy villagers and new houses. Sodto explains that while he has taken over the village, he has no intention of being cruel. He offers them a choice. If they're so determined to throw their lives away, they should surrender them to him instead. Faced with this proposition, the soldiers bow their heads to the ground in unison. They accept his offer and pledge themselves to him. Sodto stands before them, his proposal accepted. Nearby, Aries watches the scene unfold, remarking that he truly didn't kill them. Sodto, annoyed, reminds her that he already told her he would. She presses him further, questioning what he gains by sparing them when he could have killed them to prepare for the coming battle. He retorts that he never said he would kill everyone. His only goal is to make the army withdraw. He then flashes a confident, fanged grin, telling her to just watch. He proclaims he will end this with the least amount of sacrifice possible. As he speaks, Aries suddenly shudders, her body trembling. She stammers, acknowledging his point but trailing off. Surprised by her sudden reaction, Sodto asks what's wrong as she looks down, her expression tense. She becomes flustered, her face blushing as she shouts that this is fine. Aries then offers a curt thank you, quickly adding that it's not as if she needed to say it. Below, Sodto looks on in shock, wondering what's wrong with her and muttering about how finicky she is for a vampire. The eye patch girl watches the exchange, recalling how Sodto had told her she wouldn't be in any danger if she came along. She resolves to stay and see for herself whether Ryudo, a man who had kidnapped someone, could truly coexist with humans. He turns toward her with a confident, fanged smile. Fine by me, he declares, agreeing to make her a witness to history. And so, The second battle of Drackle Village concluded without a single casualty. In the aftermath, Sodto found himself quite busy. He assigned jobs to the newcomers, built houses for them, and even started a farm. The existence of this strange village began to spread, its influence reaching the surrounding areas. Word traveled to the country of Silveria, located to the north, of a village where a vampire ruled over humans. In a grand throne room, an advisor with long, light hair bows deeply. He asks his liege if the rumors are true, confirming that the information is reliable and comes directly from their dispatched agents in Silveria. The woman on the throne, addressed as Lady Minina, listens. The advisor clarifies that from the village's perspective, it appears to be a relationship of governance, not one of control. Minina questions this distinction. She contemplates this new information, her thoughts turning to the vampire at the center of it all. Coexistence with humans, so that's him, she muses. The advisor notes that they have made various overtures and asks what she intends to do. Minina turns slightly, a faint smile playing on her lips. I'm a little interested, she replies. She declares that as a millennium vampire, she will personally ascertain the worth of the one who has inherited the will of her rock. Continuing, she instructs her advisor to send a letter ahead of her arrival. He acknowledges her command, promising to prepare it, but she clarifies that they should wait and not depart immediately. She then commands him to make at least the minimum preparations for her reception, as she will be going in person. The advisor bows his head in assent, acknowledging her orders. Her thoughts then drift to Shzard, pondering whether his dream had failed to come true, or perhaps if it had been realized after all. Meanwhile, in the village, Sodto walks alongside the eye-patch girl and the knight, Aries. The tale of a reincarnated soul and a vampire continues to unfold. Amidst the roaring flames of a burning village, a young blonde girl flees in terror. She stumbles and falls to the dusty ground, looking back at the devastation and a fallen figure in a red cloak. Her gaze settles on the lifeless forms of her parents and neighbors scattered across the ground. Her red eye widens, reflecting the inferno as the horrific reality sinks in. A voice cuts through her shock. A female vampire looms over her, a cruel smile playing on her lips as she remarks that a survivor remains. The vampire observes that the girl appears to be the last one left, as the child stares up, paralyzed by fear. The vampire erupts in laughter, declaring her profound love for humans, especially when they are faced with the crisis of life and death. Her gloating is interrupted by the sudden arrival of a blonde swordsman who identifies her as a vampire. Unfazed, she notes that someone with the arm of the Holy Maiden has appeared and welcomes the confrontation. She leans menacingly close to the terrified girl, her fangs glinting. She introduces herself as Sodto and taunts the child, asking if she wants to know all about the one who stole everything from her. With another peal of laughter, Sodto spreads her demonic, bat-like wings. Aries gasps, jolting awake. She realizes it was just a dream. Kneeling on the floor of a rustic building, she sees a bucket of dark liquid nearby and understands she must have fallen asleep while preparing holy water. She rises to her feet, her expression hardening with resolve. The nightmare was a memory, but it has only served to strengthen her will to fight the vampire. Her inner voice declares her intent with cold fury. Vampires are the enemy of humanity, and today, she will finally kill her target. Outside, a villager cries out in surprise as Aries is doused with a bucket of holy water. The liquid splashes over her, but she remains completely unharmed. Ignoring the commotion, she breaks into a sprint, yelling for everyone to get back and clear a path. As she charges forward, a dark figure descends from above, landing squarely in her path. Sodto, clad in his black cape, stands before her, blocking her advance. Aries skids to a halt, her eyes wide with shock at his sudden appearance. He asks if she is all right. Aries remains tense, her hand tightening on the hilt of her sword. He informs her that his work for the day is over and he intends to go home, but he questions her intense focus. He observes that her goal is clearly not just hunting vampires for money. Her obsession, he notes with a grimace, is abnormal. In response to his question, she explodes with rage, shouting that vampires murdered her parents and everyone else who lived in her village. He appears stunned by her outburst. She continues, her voice filled with anguish, declaring that she lost everything because of his kind. She then demands to know what is so poisonous about her desire to live in peace alongside humans. Pointing an accusing finger, she commands him to atone for his sins. He retorts that he bears no responsibility for such nonsense. Unfazed, Aries screams that all vampires are to blame. Hearing this, he seems to have a moment of recognition, quietly uttering her name. He then calmly instructs her to bow her head and apologize to the people of the village. She stares back, completely confused by his demand. He explains that before she ever came here, human bandits attacked this very village, and no one came to their aid. With a pained look, he declares that since she is also human, she must take responsibility for their actions. They shout at one another, faces turned away in anger. She insists it has nothing to do with her, but he immediately counters that she was the one who tried to hold him accountable for the actions of others. He continues his argument, telling her not to generalize about all vampires just because she is ignorant of their families. He adds that she doesn't need to be convinced right now. His words leave Aries speechless. Changing his tone, He admits to having said some unpleasant things and offers her a small bottle as an apology, tossing it through the air. As she catches it, he holds up a similar vial, remarking that it's his favorite. She looks at the yellowish liquid inside, puzzled. Her mind races with gruesome possibilities, wondering aloud if it's some concoction meant to dissolve humans. He simply clarifies that it's honey. He explains to the bewildered knight that he has a small, contracted apiary in the forest. The honey, he clarifies, is simply a share he receives from there. Her cheeks flush as she clutches the jar, completely baffled. She internally questions what this creature is, wondering why a vampire would do such a thing. He grins, declaring that this is precisely the point. He reflects on his past, acknowledging that even though he is a vampire, he doesn't harm humans, which is why her holy power is completely ineffective against him. Flustered, Aries shouts for him to wait, protesting that his logic makes no sense. Despite his words, her resolve hardens. She internally rejects his reasoning, telling herself that a vampire is still a vampire, an existence that brings harm to humans. Therefore, she concludes, her actions are just. Far from the forest confrontation, the sprawling royal capital of the Silveria kingdom stands, a bastion of civilization enclosed by high walls. Within the halls of the Vampire Hunting Guild's Silveria branch, a meeting is underway. One member reports that a vampire has indeed occupied the village that refused their protection money. Sodto, seated among them, casually affirms this, suggesting it simplifies their efforts to collect the funds. Minina, another member, agrees, viewing the development as quite convenient. Leaning forward, Lord West reveals his true intentions. He had planned for a vampire to attack a village in this country all along, saving him the trouble. He explains that if the nation struggles to deal with the threat, the guild can intervene, indebting the state to them and possibly gaining political power. He smugly calls a perfect plan. He scoffs at the very notion of a vampire coexisting with humans, dismissing it as utter nonsense. His mind made up, he declares that even if their dispatched vampire is dealt with, they will create a living hell for the villagers. To that end, he resolves to send a subjugation order to the Silver Saintess, Aries. Suddenly, a man named Botus leaps to his feet, shouting for them to wait. He voices his strong opposition to using a vampire, questioning the very principle of allowing one into the guild's ranks. His outburst is met with calm condescension from a blonde-haired member, who calls him naive and questions why they shouldn't use any tool at their disposal. Beside him, Minina coolly tells the newcomer to hold his tongue. Lord West laughs, declaring the matter settled. He raises a glass of wine and proposes a toast to their glory. As the other members raise their glasses in agreement, Botus can only watch in dismay. Elsewhere, in the affected village, a young girl approaches Aries. She asks if Aries is Mel's older sister, then questions why she would want to get rid of the vampire, insisting he's a good person. The knight looks down, taken aback by the child's words. She continues earnestly, asking what Aries means. She argues that a good vampire wouldn't drink human blood or become a monster. The girl reveals that this vampire protected their village and even saved her life. The child's testimony paints a vivid picture. Since the vampire arrived, everyone has had plenty to eat and has become happy again. In the village square, Sodto celebrates among the joyful villagers, a large piece of roasted meat in his hand. The young girl continued her plea, standing defiantly before the knight. But Aries' expression was firm. She told the girl to listen carefully, stating that vampires are unequivocally evil and must be exterminated. If the village did not accept this, she warned, it would be destroyed along with the creature harbor. She refused to yield, arguing that while bandits had been pillaging their home, it was the vampire who protected them. The girl insisted he was not the monster Aries claimed, explaining that he was kind and had barely taken any blood. She reminded the knight that everyone in the village was relieved when their taxes were lightened, a change brought about by him. With tears welling in her eyes, she accused Aries of being the truly evil one for threatening to destroy her home. Her accusation struck a nerve. Aries roared that she was wrong, that there could be no such thing as a kind vampire. Startled by the knight's sudden fury, the girl flinched and ran away, calling out for her older sister. Aries was left alone, watching her flee toward the village. Left alone, the knight slumped to the ground, overwhelmed with frustration. She muttered to herself, questioning what was happening. A normal vampire, she thought, would simply attack people and drink their blood without hesitation. She considered the implications. If what the girl said was true, then her entire mission was compromised. Her thoughts turned to the official report she had to submit to the guild. She knew she could never write that a vampire had established a benevolent relationship with humans. It was unthinkable. Her resolve hardened. She decided she would report everything exactly as she saw it, trusting that the guild would render the correct judgment. A memory surfaced, a knight holding her as a small child, assuring her that the guild, which had saved her from a vampire, was the embodiment of justice. Meanwhile, at the mansion, the eye-patch girl approached Sodto, who stood with the other young girl. She presented him with a sealed envelope. He took the letter, looking puzzled, and offered a simple thank you. He broke the seal and read the contents. The message was brief. I will be visiting this evening. Prepare for departure and await my signal. As he wondered about the sender, the eye-patch girl noted internally that a bat had delivered it, meaning it must have come from another vampire. His frustration boiled over. He threw his arms up, complaining loudly that the sender should have the decency to sign their name. He exclaimed that he didn't even know any other vampires. The eye patch girl watched his outburst calmly. As he vented, she got his attention. Pointing out the window as dusk began to fall, she calmly informed him that his mysterious visitor had just arrived. Surprised, he turned to look. He watched as a grand carriage, pulled by two powerful horses, came to a halt with a sudden jolt before the mansion. Standing beside the eye patch girl, he remarked that someone quite impressive seemed to have arrived. A footman bowed deeply by the carriage door, announcing their safe arrival and thanking the passenger for their efforts. From the brightly lit doorway of the mansion, a young woman with long, light hair emerged. Dressed in an elegant dark gown, she smiled, revealing her vampiric fangs as she offered a greeting. "Good day," she began, then paused. "Or has it been a while?" Her gaze sharpened as she reconsidered her own words. With a confident smile, she corrected herself, musing aloud whether "pleased to meet you" would be a more fitting introduction. In the quiet of the night, Sodto Ryuto is approached by an elegantly dressed woman. She greets him, asking if it has been a while, or perhaps if this is their first meeting. He seems to recognize her, but she clarifies that it is indeed their first time meeting. She introduces herself as Minina, an old acquaintance of Shzard's previous incarnation. Hearing her name, he recalls that Shzard's diary mentioned a best friend on numerous occasions. Minina's expression turns serious as she confirms this was indeed her. He asks what business she has with him, reminding her that he has only inherited a portion of Shzard's memories. Minina explains that she has come to see him, the one who inherited Shzard's will, the one for whom Shzard sacrificed his life to summon. She then gestures towards a grand carriage waiting nearby, a clear display of her noble status. Moments later, inside a well-appointed room, Minina sits at a table with a glass of wine. Her demeanor shifts to one of imperious command as she orders Sodto to entertain her and prepare a meal worthy of a 3-star restaurant using only ingredients from the village. Sodto is stunned by her sudden and demanding attitude. Her outrageous demands cause a stir among Sodto's companions. The blonde guild member finds her behavior absurd, while the eye patch girl questions if a letter was sent in advance, as would be proper. The eye patch girl complains about the unreasonableness of it all, having had to prepare ink and paper from scratch. Elsewhere, the village girl, Ailey, senses Minina's vampiric aura but notes a lack of malice. Sodto warns Ailey to keep her distance, identifying Minina as a top-ranked vampire certified by the guild. Minina simply smiles, acknowledging the recognition. Just then, the female knight, Aries, arrives. Her gaze is fixed on Sodto as she remarks on his resemblance to Shzard. She then confronts him directly, demanding to know why he is allowing a vampire hunter, referring to herself, to remain in the village. Her words draw Minina's attention. The vampire's eyes narrow with contempt as she dismisses the vampire hunting guild as a gathering of the lowest and worst kind of people. In response, Aries' hand clenches into a fist, and she declares that she will not forgive any insults directed at the guild. Before the knight can act, Sodto steps between them, gently placing a hand on her arm. He urges her to wait, calmly stating that he trusts Minina. Aries looks up at him, her anger instantly replaced by stunned surprise at his touch and his unexpected declaration. She remained unconvinced, believing it impossible. In her mind, the only outcome for a vampire hunter and a vampire was absolute conflict. Sodto, however, argued that it was possible depending on the circumstances. He explained that humans having the power to oppose vampires would foster a sense of security. This, he added, was a path to coexistence mentioned in Shzard's diary. Minina acknowledged his point before turning her attention to the silent Aries. Rather than continue the debate, she requested they have a meal. Resigned, Sodto agreed. Ailey and the eye patch girl quickly prepared a table outside. He then presented a tray with a flourish, announcing it as the village's proud 3-item hospitality set: black bread, blood jelly, and freshly gathered honey. He admitted it was all he could offer at the moment. Minina picked up the black bread, which crumbled in her grasp. The eye patch girl explained that it was left out to dry for preservation, making it incredibly hard. She then took a sip from the glass, noting its sweetness. Sodto clarified that it was honey from a nearby forest and that the blood was ordinary, just slightly solidified. Minina simply acknowledged his explanation. Soon, the tray was empty. Having finished everything, she politely thanked them for the meal. While dabbing her lips with a napkin, she asked if he truly wanted her opinion. Standing beside the eye patch girl, Sodto earnestly replied that he would accept whatever she had to say. Her hand rested firmly on the table as she prepared to speak without reservation. She then pointed directly at him, declaring the meal a score of 30 out of 100. Sodto and the eye patch girl stared in shock. Minina clarified that aside from the honey, everything else rated a 0, explaining that while a young girl's blood is delicious, it's not an ingredient that can be improved with skill. She dismisses the meal, explaining that this is what truly delicious blood tastes like as she produces a small vial filled with a dark red liquid. A flustered Sodto questions if this is what she meant, and she simply instructs him to drink it. He complies, bringing the vial to his lips. He is immediately overwhelmed by the flavor. The empty vial slips from his grasp and clatters to the ground as he marvels at its deliciousness, a subtle sweetness with a profound depth. He compares it to the highest quality brand name meat. Minina clarifies that the blood is indeed human, from a person she had carefully nurtured for years, meticulously managing their diet. She then delivers her verdict. Considering the vast difference in quality, the village currently holds no attraction for vampires. Sodto is taken aback, protesting that with time, they could establish a safe and legal supply. Minina dismisses his point, questioning why any vampire would bother with this village when superior blood is available elsewhere. Her attention then turns to the assembled villagers. She bluntly informs them that the humans of this village are not particularly appetizing, pointing out that until recently, they have been suffering under heavy taxes and food shortages. She continues her explanation, painting a picture of a vampire preying on one of the villagers. It would be far more logical, she argues, to hunt in the city where the people are better nourished, yielding more delicious and nutritious blood. Her words strike home. Sodto stands defeated, acknowledging the truth in her assessment. He realizes that if they want to attract a vampire to live among them, they must indeed compete on the quality of their blood. This realization sparks a new determination within him. He clenches his fist, understanding that the village must become more prosperous. While he had always intended for it to thrive, he now sees a clear and urgent reason why its current state is unacceptable. With renewed purpose, he turns to Minina, a confident smile spreading across his face. He thanks her for her harsh lesson. Surprised, she confirms his gratitude, and he asks her to watch as he strives to improve the village. She listens to his declaration, her expression unreadable. However, she warns him that no matter how much effort he puts in, this place is, for a vampire, a dead land. Her stark pronouncement leaves him speechless. She states unequivocally that in its present condition, no vampire would ever choose to live in this village. In this land, even a powerful being like a vampire is not safe. A lesser vampire would quickly weaken and perish, crumbling into dust. Sodto explains to Minina that people have lived in the area for a long time, so the local vampire is likely harmless to humans. However, he admits that something feels off, something harmful about this particular vampire. She replies, her hand to her chin in thought, that even with her own sensory abilities, she can only detect a faint sense of unease. She concludes that a weaker vampire would likely not notice it at all. He points toward a distant mountain, identifying it as the likely source of the disturbance. A sudden, chilling realization strikes him. The reason he doesn't feel the discomfort that affects other vampires is because he possesses none of their weaknesses. His mind races in a panic. If he can't feel the source of the discomfort, he can't identify its cause. And if he can't do that, he has no way of discovering this vampire's weakness. Struggling to find a way to investigate this strange phenomenon, he turns his attention back to his companion. Minina, he begins, "I'm sorry," but she looks up at him, her expression one of mild surprise and curiosity, waiting for him to continue. Meanwhile, the silver saintess, Aries, observes from afar, questioning her own actions. She watches as Sodto coexists peacefully with the villagers, even being thanked by one of the girls. This sight clashes with her conviction that all vampires are inherently evil. Her troubled thoughts are cut short when a bat descends from the sky, dropping a scroll directly into her waiting hand. As she unfurls the parchment, her expression shifts to one of utter shock. Without a moment's hesitation, she sprints away. The eye-patch girl, watching from a distance, calls out, "Aries, what's wrong?" Confused by the knight's sudden urgency, she watched as her companions began to argue. Minina exclaimed in frustration that her dress was torn, prompting an annoyed Sodto to say she should have stayed behind. Minina retorted that she couldn't let him investigate alone and reminded him that he was the one who had made her cry. He continued to carry her through the rocky terrain, prompting her to observe that they looked like a parent and child. Minina's attention then shifted to their destination, noting an unpleasant atmosphere emanating from further up the mountain. The eye-patch girl explained the local rumors. Gold could be found here, but the abundance of monsters kept humans away. Hearing this, she suggested they turn back, but Sodto disagreed, stating that the atmosphere didn't bother him. The prospect of gold was too tempting, and he decided to try digging for it. With a powerful grunt, he struck the ground. The impact shattered the rock, and from the small crater, he pulled a jagged piece of ore. He examined his find as Minina leaned in, asking if he had found something of value. He didn't answer, his attention fixed on his hand. A faint sizzle rose from his fingertips as he realized he'd been burned. The ore was silver. This place was Silver Vein Mountain, a peak rich with a metal that is poison to vampires. Sodto examines a piece of ore, identifying the location as the Silver Mine Mountain. He crushes the rock underfoot, noting that it's mixed with gold. He concludes that the rumors he heard were only half true. His companion, Minina, observes him thoughtfully. She remarks that while she heard he had no weaknesses, silver is indeed poisonous to him. She then questions if, with his power, he could even wield a holy weapon. In a flash, he summons a gleaming holy sword, confirming her suspicion with a look of surprise. She elaborates on the problem. If the entire mountain is dormant with silver, it would be incredibly difficult to remove the source of the poison, even if it's separate from the holy poison that affects him. He then asks what would happen if his blood, which is harmless, were to mix with water. Minina reassures him that ordinary water is fine. As long as it isn't holy water, it will remain harmless. He falls silent, lost in thought. Seeing his contemplative state, Minina calls out from a short distance, asking what he intends to do. His gaze drifts down towards the settlement below, Drackle Village. With a confident gesture, he simply tells her to watch. The focus shifts to his home, specifically the storeroom lined with jars of blood. A reptilian eye, belonging to his familiar, snaps open with a sharp glint. Outside, Sodto stands with his arms outstretched as a powerful energy surges from him, causing rain to begin falling from the darkened sky. A single drop lands on Minina's outstretched hand. She looks at it in shock, realizing it is a rain of blood. Sodto explains his method. He took the blood stored in his house, turned it into mist, and combined it with the water vapor in the clouds. As the blood rain soaks the ground and foliage, Minina understands his grand design. With this, he can permeate the entire mountain with his essence and purify the silver within. She voices her concern that such a massive undertaking will inevitably have leaks, causing the surrounding plants to wither. He reassures her that it is all right. He is carefully gathering all the blood that has seeped into the ground. Though it requires considerable mental effort, he insists he can manage it. The blood rain intensifies, drenching the entire mountain. The thought of controlling such a vast quantity of blood without losing a single drop seems almost impossible. Despite the sheer scale of the task, she steels her resolve. Moments later, she senses a change. The unpleasant aura emanating from the mountain has vanished. It has been completely purified. Sodto Ryudo throws his arms up in triumph, shouting that with the mountain cleansed, no more vampires will be drawn to the nearby village. He turns to Minina, grabbing her hands and thanking her enthusiastically. Startled for a moment, she quickly regains her composure, dismissing his gratitude. She states she acted for her own reasons and, in the process, witnessed something quite fascinating. Her mind races. She recognizes the blood rain as a technique possessed by vampire hunters. She realizes that if their silver-based equipment were to be purified by this method, they would be left utterly defenseless. A sly smile crosses her face as she contemplates the devastating potential of what she has just learned. Her thoughts then shift back to him. She asks why he is so dedicated to carrying on Shzard's will, questioning what could possibly make him sympathize enough to undertake such an enormous task. He pauses for a moment before answering quietly. It is because he has seen Shzard's memories. His words trigger a memory, a scene from the past. In a tavern on the edge of a quiet town, Shzard sat alone, finding the place and its people utterly dull. He had a cruel pastime. He would approach women, reveal his vampiric nature to terrify them, and then feed on their fear-tainted blood. On that particular day, he followed his usual pattern, inviting the tavern keeper to join him after a shift. But as they walked, something unexpected happened, stopping him in his tracks. He watched the tavern keeper kneeling on the forest floor, her back to him. He wondered if she had been discovered, but she simply asked what had happened. He questioned why she would go to such lengths for a mere wild rabbit, calling it nothing more than food. With tears welling in her eyes, she disagreed, finding the creature's fate pitiful and suggesting they bury it in the woods. She explained that the sanctity of life has nothing to do with whether a creature is livestock. Even if it was destined to be their food, she felt it was right to offer thanks and praise for its life. He found her to be a strange girl as he watched her kneeling beside the small grave she had made for the animal. In the end, on that day, Shzard did not drink the woman's blood. From that point on, he found himself interested in her, wanting to know more. He visited her the next day and the day after that. He began to wish for her to be by his side, and as they grew closer, they both believed that as long as they were together, everything would be all right. Despite this, their happiness was shattered. A priest pointed an accusing finger, declaring that the vampire had finally shown his true, filthy form. The priest revealed he had heard the rumors and had woven silver thread into the wedding veil. As the fabric touched Shzard, his hands began to burn and smoke, forcing him to recoil in agony. The woman watched in horror, unable to believe what was happening. The priest continued his condemnation, shouting that humans are not meant to be devoured and that a vampire will always be a vampire. He clutched his burning hands as the priest turned to the crowd, questioning their allegiance and demanding they bring holy water. He couldn't understand why they would side with a human girl. He grabs his bride and flees the church, carrying her into the nearby woods. She cries out for him to wait, but he continues onward, eventually leaving her behind as he runs through an open clearing. She catches up to him, her face buried in her hands. She confesses that she had faintly suspected he was a vampire, but that she was happy regardless. With tears in her eyes, she asks why he didn't just continue to deceive her. He closes his eyes in anguish. He had intended to take her far away, but he knew she had a frail body and a family she would miss. His hand clenches into a fist, his plan now in ruins. He tells her their time together was nothing more than a fleeting dream. Collapsed on the ground, she begs him to return to the town and claim that she was the one who deceived him, trying to protect him even now. A single tear falls from his eye as he looks down at her. With a final, quiet farewell, he turns and walks away, leaving her in the forest. As he departs, he thinks to himself that it would have been better if they had never met at all. He glances back one last time to see her sitting on the ground, a sad smile on her face. The thought is immediately rejected. He breaks into a run, biting his lip so hard it draws blood. He realizes with conviction that he does not regret meeting her for a single moment. The memory of the townspeople's prejudice, Their belief that humans who lose their fangs and vampires cannot live together in peace fills him with rage. He roars that such an unreasonable logic is unforgivable, and that he himself will twist that very logic. The flashback ends, returning to Sodto in the present. He vows to prove that his past self's meeting with her was not a mistake. He reflects that while he doesn't completely agree with his predecessor's feelings, he understands them. His contemplation is interrupted by the village girl, Aries, who asks him what is wrong. He turns away, dismissing her concern by saying it's nothing, and that it wouldn't be right to gossip about an acquaintance's past. He could only manage a stunned utterance, as Aries suddenly held a dark, smooth stone to her eye. Her expression grew serious as she announced that this was a serious matter. Her mystic eye had just detected an emergency. His confusion was immediate. Mystic eye, he blurted out, what's that? Aries explained that her right eye could perceive things far away, and though she was concerned about the emergency, a new thought struck Sodto. He recalled her first plea for help and asked if that was how she had found him in the first place. Aries quietly affirmed his suspicion. Sodto explains to his companions that he normally wears an eye patch to suppress his uncontrollable magic. The village girl, Aries, realizes aloud that this must be why his eyes tend to get dry. Hearing this, Minina connects the dots. She remarks that the immense power she felt from the blood he'd given her earlier must have been due to his magic. She identifies his ability as a considerably powerful evil eye, as Aries looks on with a concerned expression. Their conversation is abruptly cut short when a villager bursts in, shouting that vampires are attacking the village. Sodto's face contorts in shock and disbelief. Meanwhile, in the woods just outside the village, the night Aries senses a disturbance. She calls out into the trees before leaping into action, moving swiftly through the canopy. She lands before a powerful-looking vampire who introduces himself as Beard of the Strong Arm, a high-ranking wanted vampire from the guild. He casually tells her she's done well to come and that he'll take it from here. He then presents her with a document, revealing it's an order from the guild for vampires to destroy Shzard village. Aries stares at the paper, utterly bewildered. She scrutinizes the document, confirming its authenticity. It bears a seal that cannot be forged, along with a special magic seal that can only be applied by someone from within the guild itself. The vampire, Beard, confirms that what he is doing is a guild mission, and the letter in her hands is the undeniable proof. He smirks, warning her not to interfere with his meal. In response, Aries draws a crystalline blade, her expression hardening as she asks if he expects her to permit the lawless slaughter of vampires. He pauses, assessing her. He acknowledges that she is no ordinary vampire, but a powerful one against whom holy magic would be less effective, making a fight difficult. He then poses a pointed question. Does she truly think well of that village? His words trigger a memory of a young village girl speaking to Sodto. The girl's voice echoes in Aries' mind, declaring that the vampire protected and healed them, and that theirs is a village that coexists with evil, a village she refuses to disavow. She stood her ground as the vampire enforcer questioned her. He crouched before her, stating dismissively that he already knew the contents of her report. He continued, placing the blame for the village's troubles squarely on the vampires, and asking if she intended to continue her evil vampirism as she pleased. A shadowy representation of the guild's authority declared that if rumors of her actions spread, humans would never again accept vampire rule. Aries remained silent, her expression hardening. The enforcer smirked, delivering a stark warning. To go against them was to go against the guild itself. He then presented her with an ultimatum. Let them pass and leave the village, or face expulsion from the guild. He asked if she possessed the writ of expulsion herself. Aries could only grit her teeth in frustration. Her thoughts drifted to the villagers' unwavering support for Sodto, their cheers echoing in her memory. Sodto himself had warned her that letting these vampires go meant the village would be destroyed. With a soft click, her hand tightened around the hilt of her sword. The enforcer grinned, pleased. He remarked how good it felt to have a vampire hunter obey his command. With a wave of his hand, he ordered his followers forward, announcing it was time to feast on the villagers' blood. As the group of vampires began to advance, Aries stood with her back to them, seemingly resigned. She thought to herself that if this was the guild's judgment, then it must be correct. To prove his point, the enforcer grabbed a small, dark-haired girl from the crowd. He offered a false apology, claiming that the sacrifice of this village would save countless others from future vampire attacks, as Sodto rushed towards them from the background. Aries tried to convince herself that this was justice. The enforcer's subordinate mused that with the local vampire gone, they could eat in peace. The enforcer agreed it would be a waste not to, questioning if even one villager should be spared. With a cruel smile, he gave the final command. Suck them all dry. Kill them all. In a blur of motion, she spun and drove her sword through the enforcer's chest. Blood erupted from the wound as he stared down in shock, gasping out a question about what she was doing. From a distance, her solitary figure stood over her fallen superior. She stood over him, her armored boot planted firmly on the ground, cracking the earth beneath. The enforcer, sprawled from the force of her attack, looked up in disbelief. He questioned if she truly intended to defy him, asking if she was prepared to be expelled from the guild for her interference. He rose to his feet, a confident smirk on his face. While he admitted she had caught him off guard, he could sense her formidable magical power. As his subordinates watched from behind, He noted that under the night sky, it was the most active time for vampires. A wave of doubt washed over Aries. She gripped her arm, realizing that she might not be able to win this fight. But even so, her resolve hardened. She declared fiercely that she would never overlook a vampire who preys on people. That, she proclaimed, is the duty of the one known as the Silver Saintess, Aries. The female knight, Aries, faces off against a group of vampires led by the imposing enforcer, Beard of the Strong Arm. He dismisses her, stating that the time for talk is over. Unfazed, Aries readies her sword, warning him that if he insists on fighting, she will make him regret it. She channels her power, invoking the sacred sun to purge the darkness. She unleashes a blinding flash of holy light. The vampires recoil, shielding their eyes from the searing radiance as the force of the blast pushes them back. Aries presses her attack, commanding the sacred light to strike true. The enforcer grunts, shielding his face from the attack. He curses her, acknowledging that her holy light has weakened him, but he remains standing, defiant. She takes a moment to assess the battlefield. Though her initial assault was effective, she is still at a severe numerical disadvantage. She concludes that, at the very least, she must buy some time. As she considers her options, her eyes widen as a caped figure, Sodto, appears behind her. She wonders what he is doing here and briefly questions if he intends to drink her blood, dismissing the thought as absurd. Across from them, the vampire enforcer roars, declaring that he will be the one to defeat her. He charges forward, his body seemingly unhindered by the lingering holy energy. He shouts that the filthy light won't stop him. Aries prepares another blast, but he smirks, telling her that holy magic is useless against him and that she should already know his fighting style. Suddenly, he spits a torrent of dark liquid directly at her. The substance, human blood, splatters across her face and armor. She recoils in shock and disgust, crying out at the filth. From behind her, Sodto calmly explains the enforcer's power. He reveals that the man's ability combines holy magic and silver, weakening them with his own blood, thus making it an even fight. She clutches her chest, feeling the debilitating effect of the blood as her power drains away. The vampire enforcer looks on, bored, and tells her to just wash it off with holy water if it bothers her so much. She grits her teeth, realizing she has been contaminated. Just then, a calm female voice cuts in. Lady Minina appears beside the enforcer, a faint, unsettling smile on her face. And that, she says, is why I am so very fond of humans. Her smile widened, revealing sharp fangs as she explained her reasoning. Humans, she mused, are most beautiful when faced with the crisis of death, and that is precisely why she loves them. Aries stared back, horrified, unable to comprehend why she would utter such words. Before Aries could react to the chilling declaration, the vampire enforcer lunged forward. His fist slammed into her stomach with brutal force, the impact echoing as she gasped in pain. She was thrown backwards, skidding across the ground before coming to a stop. Coughing up blood, she struggled to stand, realizing the immense power difference. The enforcer loomed over her, casually remarking that while it would be painful, he could easily kill her now. He added that he was tempted to taste the blood of a vampire hunter, especially one as magnificent as her. Through the haze of pain, her eyes narrowed with determination. "Answer me," she demanded, her voice strained. "Why did you say those words?" Her thoughts raced, questioning if the enforcer's actions were ordered by Sodto. A memory surfaced of Sodto wondering if a certain young girl was meant to kill her after many years. The enforcer, however, looked on with a puzzled expression, seemingly unaware of what she was talking about. A surge of righteous fury washed over her. "Kayako, anger," she roared, forcing herself back to her feet. She declared that she could not lose, not when she had a village to protect. She would not allow the past to repeat itself. Holy light began to radiate from her body. Kneeling, she clasped her hands in prayer, channeling her remaining power. "Oh, great darkness that devours my life, grant even a sliver of God's smile to this pinnacle," she chanted. She knew that in her weakened state, this all-or-nothing attack was her only chance. She resolved to put her life on the line to protect the people, preparing to unleash a divine mystery right there and then. But in that instant, the enforcer moved. He appeared behind a small, dark-haired girl named Mel, grabbing her. "Mel-chan," another villager cried out. He warned Aries that if she unleashed her magic, the child would die. As Aries watched in horror, he clenched his fist, and a brilliant light shattered within his grasp. The destruction of her holy focus sent a wave of agony through Aries, causing her to collapse. The terrified girl cried out for her sister. The enforcer sneered, telling the vampire hunter that she would now have the pleasure of watching him slowly kill the child. In that moment, Aries knew she was utterly defeated, powerless to do anything at all. Lying helpless on the ground, she could only watch as the tense standoff was shattered by a sudden, brutal impact. The vampire enforcer reeled back, his face bruised and stunned, from a punch delivered with blinding speed. The blow came from Sodto, whose fist was now bloodied, his expression one of pure fury as he held the rescued girl, Mel, in his other arm. The dazed enforcer turned his attention from his attacker to a new, cloaked figure that had appeared in the distance, demanding to know who they were. In response to the demand, the cloaked figure revealed himself. A confident smile graced the face of the dark-haired vampire as he announced that he was the village chief of Drackle Village. From the sidelines, the other vampires recognized him instantly, crying out the name Ryudo. Hearing this, the knight on the ground stirred. A faint, knowing smile touched Aries' blood-stained lips. Looking toward the newcomer, she murmured with weary relief, "You're late? You idiot." Sodto Ryudo arrives with a confident smile, telling the assembled women to leave the rest to him. Sodto, carrying the young Melchon, lands softly and calls out to someone named Minina, questioning her presence. Sodto, meanwhile, kneels to reassure Aries and Eiley, confirming that Mel is safe and that they have nothing more to worry about. He then turns his attention to Aries, asking if she has anything to say. He notes her apparent good health, while she seems to plead with him not to kill their opponents without reason. Across the clearing, the vampire enforcer with the mohawk orders his subordinates not to interfere, declaring that they will now proceed to attack the village. In response, Sodto addresses the group directly. He states that as the village chief, he cannot simply stand by. He explains his unique position as a vampire who seeks to coexist with humans and makes them an offer. If they wish, he will share his blood with them, allowing them to become residents of the village. The enforcer initially laughs, remarking on the wonderful idea of coexisting with humans. His demeanor quickly shifts to one of contempt, and he calls Sodto a fool. He declares such a thing to be impossible and vows to crush the naive ideals that Sodto holds so dear. Sotto's face hardens with fury, declaring that he will not let the insult stand. He lunges forward with blinding speed, driving his fist directly into the enforcer's chest. The impact is immense, sending the larger vampire flying backward as blood erupts from his mouth. Despite the devastating blow, the enforcer merely smirks, commenting that the attack was quite effective. The gaping, bloody hole in his torso begins to bubble and boil, rapidly regenerating before their eyes. Watching from a distance, Sodto remarks that fighting is pointless. She explains that unless their weak point is struck, vampires like them are invincible. Sodto, touching his head in disbelief, realizes that the vampire he just struck has already recovered. The enforcer concedes that Sodto is strong, but dismisses it as useless. He states that while vampires shouldn't kill one another, he will accept Sotto's hostility and, in return, will not kill the humans. He clarifies his position with a smirk, telling Sodto to give up because they can no longer be stopped. With a heavy sigh and a grim expression, Sodto clenches his fists, acknowledging that he understands the situation. He listened as the enforcer scoffed at his offer. The Mohawk vampire declared that for their kind, who prey on humans, peaceful coexistence was simply not an option. He dismissed Sotto's reasoning as utterly absurd, stating that he had no intention of agreeing to such a proposal. He responded with a new resolve, declaring that if they refused his offer, he would become their deterrent through the use of fear. The enforcer looked on in disbelief, questioning if Sodto had gone mad for suggesting such a thing after already talking about coexistence. His subordinate agreed, finding the turn of events certain. As the confrontation escalated, Sodto landed near Aries and a village girl. From the shadows, Sodto's voice commanded her to stay back. Though she did not understand his intentions, she acknowledged his order. He resolved internally that he must become the force that deters vampires from preying on humans. To do so, he would have to become an existence feared even by his own kind. The enforcer, unimpressed, declared that the people before him were his enemies, and that by standing in his way, Sodto had just become one of them. Elsewhere, a villager watched the shadowy figures of the vampires, voicing his fear that if they were allowed to leave, they would simply attack the village again. He reasoned that Lord West would eventually follow suit, and therefore, they had to make an example of these intruders. Back at the confrontation, Sodto began to chant, gathering magic within himself. Dark energy swirled around him as he prepared to unleash his power. He announced that he would show them the lives they had so foolishly squandered. This, he explained, was the miracle he had brought about, a miracle not of blood. He finished his incantation with a command. "Oh, sacred sun, clear away the darkness." A blinding light erupted, forcing the enforcer's subordinate to shield his eyes in pain. He unleashed the spell. A brilliant, blinding light erupted from his outstretched hand, flooding the area and cracking the very ground with its sheer, holy power. The searing radiance engulfed the hostile vampires. The enforcer roared in agony as the holy energy burned his skin, causing it to smoke. Sodto recoiled, clutching her arm in disbelief and questioning how it could possibly be holy magic. Nearby, the female knight and the eye-patch girl could only watch, stunned by the impossible display. As the blinding light began to fade, he fixed his intense gaze upon the shocked Sodto. With his hand still outstretched, he demanded an answer from her, questioning who she truly was. Sodto Ryudo stands before the hulking vampire enforcer, a confident smirk on his face. He questions the enforcer's identity, then mockingly reminds him that he's been struck by holy magic, a sensation his body should remember well. Clicking his tongue in annoyance, Sodto warns him not to even think about running away. The vampire enforcer recoils, his skin cracking and sizzling from the holy power. Unfazed, Sodto calmly approaches, commanding him to offer his life as sustenance for the sacred sun and to praise the great darkness. With that, he delivers a powerful kick sending the larger vampire stumbling back. He then leaps into the air, bat-like wings spreading from his back. He declares that he will release the Enforcer's curse, bringing a smile to the god's face. The Enforcer writhes on the ground, screaming for him to stop as his eyes burn. Sodto looks down, explaining that this is different from before. This small act of vampirism will demonstrate the divine punishment that protects life. He channels his power, roaring out the name of his technique. Iris flare, annihilating sunlight. The blast of holy light engulfs the Enforcer. His body violently disintegrates, turning to ash and dust in an instant. With his foe vanquished, he lands softly and turns his attention to the injured women. He approaches Aries, asking if she is all right. Looking up, her face bruised, she confirms that she is alive, but her expression suggests something else is on her mind. She looks at him in disbelief, questioning how he, a vampire, could wield such powerful holy magic. She exclaims that it's strange, especially since she, the Silver Saintess, is the one who should be called upon for such power. Sodto simply replies that he supposes he just has more aptitude for it than she does. As they speak, Sodto descends from the sky, remarking that she had been keeping her distance until it was safe. With a sigh, she says it can't be helped and casts a spell. A shower of sparkles envelopes her, instantly restoring her tattered dress to its pristine, frilly state. Her appearance restored, she turns her gaze to Sodto, commenting on the incredible output of the holy magic he just used. She admits that while she is considered quite strong among vampires, Ryudo's power is on a level she cannot even begin to compare with. Her words hang in the air, underscoring a fundamental truth. Holy magic is a power that imitates the sun. The sun is always in the sky, and its mere presence weakens vampires. Because of this curse, they can never truly escape its influence, not even in the dead of night. Sodto Ryudo clasps another's hand, his voice filled with conviction. He explains that by overcoming the sun, they have become strong. If humans and vampires do not prey on each other, he believes they can become a bridge of coexistence. He vows that they will not repeat their past failures. Reflecting on this ideal, Minina stands by a window where Sodto looks out. She muses that it was indeed possible to live at the same time and understand each other's values, a sentiment she directs towards Shzard. When the eye-patch girl asks if something is wrong, Minina dismisses her concern, claiming it is nothing. Having dismissed the girl's concern, she turns her attention to Sodto. With a polite smile, she introduces herself as Minina and informs him that she will be staying in the village for a while, asking him to look after her. Sodto appears taken aback by the sudden introduction. He replies that he doesn't mind, but Riley requests she not build a mansion. Minina laughs, thanking him. As this exchange occurs, Shezard's voice echoes in their minds, observing that Sodto now possesses a maddening power that was cultivated over decades. As Shezard's words hang in the air, Minina's expression turns serious. She states with quiet intensity that this is precisely why she will deliver the spawn of that madness. Her declaration stands in stark contrast to a memory of a time long past, when Shezard's original form worked happily alongside human villagers in the fields. It was a time when they failed to live on equal terms, a life of coexistence that could not be achieved. That past peace was shattered, much like the quiet of the present-day forest is broken by the sharp, sudden rush of a demonic wing slicing through the air. The source of the disturbance is Sodto, who now stands before a wounded Aries. The knight, leaning against a tree for support, admits that while she is strong, she is not stronger than Sodto. She defiantly tells Sodto that killing him would be impossible. She remains unmoved by the knight's defiance. Sodto coldly states that killing Sodto is, in fact, her sole condition for victory. If that village is destroyed, her objective will be achieved. The very idea of coexistence, she snarls, is out of the question. Her cold declaration gives way to a surge of raw fury. I will not acknowledge such a thing, she screams. Tormented by the memory of a lowest wish, she raises a hand and strikes herself hard across the face, the sharp sound echoing her inner turmoil. She forces her eyes shut, a strained smile forming on her lips as she tries to compose herself. She mutters that she cannot, she must not, she has to hide it properly. A soft sound escapes her as she regains her composure. Her composure regained, a sinister smile spreads across her face. She declares her next move. She will use even more pawns. She wants to see Sodto fight to the death alongside the villagers he protects. The blood she obtains from that struggle, she muses with a chilling laugh, will surely be delicious. Carrying the unconscious village girl on his back, Sodto Ryudo looks toward the others with concern. He asks if Aries is all right, mentioning that she seemed to have some connection to their recent foe. She turns, her face bruised and bloodied, and clarifies that it's not what he thinks. She had never met the attacker, Beard, before. However, she reveals with a clenched fist, the vampire who sent him, Sodto, knew her. Aries continues her explanation, identifying the mastermind as Sodto, a special grade vampire with a bounty from a guild. She reveals the conspiracy. Sodto colluded with the guild, using Beard to attack the village as a pretext to have Aries' expulsion papers issued. He processes this revelation, concluding that the guild is even more corrupt than he had imagined. To think they would attack his village is unforgivable. He then turns his attention to Minina, asking if she has any information about this side deal. She touches her chin thoughtfully before replying that she has no particular knowledge, finding it unheard of for a vampire to cooperate with vampire hunters. Meanwhile, leaning on the eye patch girl for support, Aries accepts her fate. She states that because she disobeyed a direct order to fight Beard, her expulsion is now certain. Hearing this, Sodto apologizes, realizing she acted to protect his village. Aries looks at him, surprised by his words, and tells him not to apologize. She smiles through her injuries, explaining that she fought to protect what was precious to her, and it was not for his sake. Since she can no longer return to the guild, she asks if she can live in the village instead. Sodto, holding the sleeping girl, smiles and thanks Aries for protecting them. He warmly agrees, welcoming her completely. As Aries takes this in, Minina reflects on the irony. The guild she once trusted tried to kill innocents, while vampires like herself and others sought to protect them. Aries resolves to trust her own eyes from now on to determine what is truly right. The conversation shifts as Aries asks about the nearby mountain. Sodto explains that it's a gold and silver mine, realizing it was fortunate the guild hadn't found it sooner. Minina adds that silver is an essential material for vampire hunters, deducing that the guild must have forcibly suppressed this information to maintain control, needing a justification to seize the area. He looks upon the battered knight, his expression hardening as he considers the vampire hunting guild's malicious use of their privileges concerning the silver mine. As they walk, the eye patch girl comes to Aries' side, offering support. She reassures the knight that things turned out for the best, prompting a questioning glance from Sodto. In response, Aries winks playfully despite the grime on her face, cheekily pointing out that owning a silver mine would make one incredibly rich. Her sudden slyness catches Sodto off guard, who tells her not to be so glib. The group continues along the path, now accompanied by Minina. Aries remarks that if they can establish a trade route, the village will surely prosper. She adds that she knows a silversmith she can consult about getting her equipment. His thoughts then turn to another matter, and he asks if anyone knows a cook. Aries and the eye patch girl are curious why one is needed, so he explains his desire to eat delicious, professionally made food, as their current meals are mostly simple home cooking. He directs his question to Minina, who confirms she does employ a cook. However, she warns that the salary is quite high, a fact that gives Sodto a moment of troubled pause. His concern fades as they reach a scenic overlook. With a young girl now on his back, he gazes at the dawn and proclaims that the rising sun is a blessing upon the village's future. Shielded by her umbrella, Minina remarks on the dazzling light and urges a quick return to the shade. The sight prompts Aries to quietly reflect on her new path, walking alongside a vampire. Sensing her contemplation, Sodto turns with a bright, determined smile. He declares that even if their paths differ, they can still advance together, and he will never give up on that. His resolve firm, Sodto's mood lightens considerably. He cheerfully suggests they hold a feast when they return, perhaps grilling some dragon meat. He thinks fondly of the interesting and unique individuals who now populate his village: Aries, Eileen, Minina, and all the others. This thought solidifies into a new purpose. Standing before the villagers as they prepare food, he announces his decision to unite everyone, villagers and vampires alike, in a grand feast to celebrate their community. This, he declares with a flourish, is his new goal. Aries, covered in grime, calls out for them to wait. Minina, holding a parasol against the sun, dismisses her, insisting they should be returning. The eye patch girl interjects, explaining that Ryudo had given the order and that if a monster is involved, she wants a ride as well. Her words are met with the sight of Aries, the eye patch girl, and the small child Melchon running towards her, pleading for help. Minina looks on, unimpressed, thinking to herself that while their request might be difficult to fulfill immediately, it should certainly be possible someday. Meanwhile, the villagers look on with renewed optimism. The village elder, his eyes closed in contentment, declares that the future of Drackle Village is bright. That bright future seems to be walking through the village streets. Sodto smiles, carrying a sleeping Melchon on his back, flanked by a joyful Aries, Eileen, and the eye patch girl. Only Minina trails behind, her expression sullen under her parasol. Yet, from a vampiric perspective, a bleak future should be what awaits them. This chapter of the territory's reform comes to a close.